All right, guys. So this video, we're going to go over scheduling. Scheduling is probably one of the most important things we do as clinicians in home health. It has a lot to do with our own job satisfaction. It has a lot to do with patient satisfaction, patient outcomes. Being good at scheduling can really make or break you as a therapist. So it's really important that we go over the most efficient way to do this and to look at some of the do's and don'ts of scheduling. And so what I'm going to do is first is show you how we as a company would like for you to schedule and then go from there. Been scheduling patients since the beginning of being in home health, so almost 10 years now. I've actually myself have performed it an efficient way, an inefficient way. I've not called patients on accident the night before or even the day of and saw how bad that can be by just wandering out to patients' homes and hoping that they'll let you see them. And so a lot of this is coming from experience of doing this. So in Kinzer, the way we schedule is you log in, and then from this main screen, you go to My Patients. So I'm actually going to go from here. You go to My Patients, Display Schedule. You have to pick the date range in which you have patients. And so I'm going to go back in time where I've got some placeholders set. Display schedule, and so this is the printable format that you can use to print out. It's going to have their address, phone number, and everything that you need to be able to take these addresses and then put them into a mapping software. So a different way of looking at that is for me is looking at a live schedule. Because this is fake, I'm going to go actually pull a live schedule, and so this is actually a therapist's schedule for a real day today, 3/1/2018. This is they have 9 patients on their schedule, so this is not made up or meant to embellish or diminish exactly what a therapist is going through. This is a live schedule from a real therapist. So what we ask that you do is when you wrap up your day before, so let's just go ahead and say this is a Wednesday. You finish your Wednesday schedule. You're wrapping up care for today. You would go and pull your schedule for tomorrow. We ask that you don't do this before 4 or 4:30. The reason why is because you're going to have throughout the day, we're going to put new patients on your schedule. And so it's important not to try to call your patients for the next day at noon or the day before, because it's a good chance that it may change on you. So we're here, we've got our schedule for the next day. The question is, I've got these patients here now. How do I know the most efficient way to see them? How should I call them? And so that's what we're about to go over. So you run your schedule and you've got your patients here. We like to use a software called Route Excel. And so all you have to do is you have to just go into any browser, just type in Route, ROUTE-XL, hit enter, and it'll bring you right where you need to go. From there, you're actually going to, it's kind of grayed out right now. Well, let me see if I can't, I don't want to do that. So you right where my arrow is pointing at, you see this import button. You're going to click that. It's going to open this box. And from there, all you have to do is from your schedule is come and cut and paste your addresses. So the last address, I just did this to speed it up, Meadow Pass Way. So I'm going to come in here on the next one. There's Meadow Pass Way. This is my next address here. I'm just going to grab it, copy it, and move it over here. I'm going to come back into my schedule and grab the next one. And I'm just going to route, this therapist had 9 on their schedule, which is a very busy day. Maybe had some cancellations the day before. So I'm actually going to just route 8 of them. That's a busy day for most therapists, and I think it's the most appropriate one to look at is 8 patients. Some people have less than a day, some people have more in a day, but I think 8's a good number to use as an example. So once you get your 8 addresses cut, and if you're having a hard time cutting and pasting, sometimes that is difficult for people, just call our office and we'll walk you through whatever computer you're using to be able to show you how to cut and paste. I'm using a Mac, so it's just Command-C to copy and Command-V to paste back into this box. So I'm going to hit import, and so it's actually going to data plot all these addresses onto a map. See, right now it's actually working its way across here, and it's mapping these patients out. So just to go back one step, when you first log in, you're just going to see this big map of Route Excel. You're going to go over here and you're going to click import. I'm going to wait for it to finish so we can show you how to do that. So you hit import, this empty box is going to pull up. This is where you're going to cut and paste. Once you cut and paste all your addresses, you're going to hit import. Okay. So you could max per line is 12. So be careful about how many you're mapping out. I doubt many therapists are going to be mapping out more than 12 in a day. So exit out of that. And so once you import them, your addresses actually pop up over here in this box. We can actually move that box right here just to for better illustration. So these are your addresses that you're going to. Let's assume, for the sake of talking about this, that the therapist lives in this little suburb called Greenspoint. We can make this first address their starting point, and you do that by clicking over it. And you can say start here, okay? And you pick your stopping point. So if that's going to be our starting point, then we might want to make this. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let this one be our ending point. So we click on it. Instead of start here, we're going to say finish here. And so now you've got your starting point and your finishing point on your map. From here, all we say is at the bottom left-hand corner here, find my route. So when we click that button, it's actually going to map this out in the most efficient way possible. This is better than using Google Maps or some other map software, because what it's going to do, it's going to put the addresses in for you, but it's not going to tell you the most efficient way to drive. And so from here, you can actually email this route to you. If you've got a scanner, you can actually scan this in. I've seen some apps that you can do that and pull this up on the go. I'm actually going to close this out and just take a harder look at this. So it actually shows you your starting point. So if you lived here in Greenspoint, you would get up. This would be address number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It only shows 6 because it assumes your starting point is one address, and then you've got an ending point. So this is a total of 8 homes. So if we scroll down, we'll actually see here where it actually tells you, it assumes a 5-minute service time. You can actually change that, but it assumes the most efficient way to drive, and it shows you a total amount of minutes or hours drove. So most optimal travel time, 1 hour and 5 minutes, and 65.5 kilometers. Don't know why that's not in miles, but 65.5. I know why, because this is actually a UK company. So Route Excel is not US based. It's based in Europe, and so they use kilometers instead of miles. So from here, we can actually do a printable version, or you can download it. There's several different ways you can get this information to yourself. You can print it. You can do several different things. What I'm going to show you that we think is the best way. I think printing it's not a bad idea, but from here, what you want to do is you want to hover over your address, your first starting point address. So McFarland. And then you come back into Kinzer and you find your schedule and you say, okay, McFarland. Okay, so McFarland actually is my very first patient. So I would put a number 1 right here. Then I would come back into Route Excel and say, what is my second address? It's Meadow Pass. So we're going to come down here and say, okay, Meadow Pass Street is right here. We're going to put a 2 right here. We're going to come back in and so on and so forth. Our third address is Peachtree, and our fourth one is Alwood. So we come back into our thing. So Peachtree would be number 3, and Peachtree is having a hard time locating Peachtree. Oh, it's right here. Peachtree would be number 3, and then Alwood would be number 4. So number 2 here would be number 4, and so on and so forth. So you would have your patients as they printed out, and then you would have 1 through 8 over here. Just forget that we have patient 9 here. And you would have the order in which is the most efficient way to see them, because Route Excel does that for you. Then from there, you call your patients. So this seems like this would take a long time, but really you're going to print your schedule, or you're going to get a printable version of it like this. You're going to cut your addresses into Route Excel. You're going to hit go. It's going to map it in the most efficient way possible for you. You then take that information, you put it back onto your schedule in the most efficient way, and that's how you call your patients. So now we're going to talk briefly about how to call patients. What we recommend as a company is that you actually call your patients the night before. So let's envision you're wrapping up your day. You get home 4:30, 5 o'clock. You call your you do this process. You call your patients, and it's now 5:30, 6 o'clock. That's probably the window in which we would like you to call your patients. If you find yourself for whatever reason trying to do this after 8 o'clock, calling after 8 o'clock is hit and miss. You may offend some people because they're eating dinner and they think that's a little too late to be calling them. And so we like the best time to be calling patients is really between, say, 4 and 6:30. There's nothing wrong with, if your day falls apart and at the end of your day, to start calling 4:30 for sure. So you've called you're getting ready to call your patients. What we ask that you do is, if you've got 8, is to either create a early morning, late morning, early afternoon, late afternoon, or you can actually break that into objective times and say 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 1 to 3, and 3 to 5. The reason why that is because you want to give yourself some wiggle room in case somebody cancels on you. So let's just assume these first 2 patients are this is the route in which I would go see them. I would call this patient and this patient and say, hey, I'm coming to see you tomorrow. I would like to be out there between 8 and 10 o'clock. Does that work for you? If both these people are agreeable to that, then I move on to 3 and 4, and I try to get these next 2 scheduled between 10 and 12. We don't like giving time frames less than 2 hours because you're going to find yourself either getting caught in traffic, behind a school bus, a wreck. There's going to be things that are going to happen to you where if you're giving patients less than 2-hour windows, it's probably going to come back to haunt you a little bit. I see some therapists do it, and they do it very efficiently. I like to leave myself as a therapist a little bit of wiggle room, so I give 2 patients a 2-hour window. And then you're going to have some patients actually tell you they don't like that. They want a more, a harder time. Maybe they take pain meds, total knee, total hip. Maybe they need a smaller window than that. The solution to that is the day of, we tell them we're going to call them an hour ahead of time. So the night before you call them, you give them a 10 to 12 time frame, and they're like, hey, I need to know, a more specific time than that. You could say, hey, I'm going to call you about an hour before I get there. And the way that works is, if you're seeing patient 1, and let's say they're scheduled at 8 o'clock, when you get to this patient's house, you're actually going to call this patient and tell them I'm about an hour away. Because if you're in this one's driveway, you're going to treat them. Most treatments, some treatments last as little as 30 minutes. Some last as long as 45 minutes to an hour. But what we find through a lot of data collection is that most treatments last, and evaluations last, about 45 minutes. So if I'm seeing this patient for 45 minutes and most average drive times are 15 minutes or less, I'm always about an hour away from my next patient. And so unless you know something about this patient in particular that's going to take longer than an hour, then maybe you quote this person a little longer than that. But if I get out to this one at 8 o'clock and I spend 45 minutes with them, and I've called this next one from the driveway before I went in, by the time I finish up with this patient and drive, I'm about an hour away from this one. When I get to number 2's patient, I call number 3. When I get to number 3, I call number 4. And that way you're always about an hour away. This actually accomplishes a couple of things. What this is going to do is it's going to really cut down on your missed visits and cut down on your increased travel time. It seems kind of redundant to be calling patients twice, once at night and then again the next day. But really, through a lot of trial and error, we've realized this is the best way. By calling patients the night before, you do give them a 2-hour time frame, but sometimes patients don't sleep well. They, had a number of things that could have happened overnight. And the next day, if you just go out there, say 12, 16 hours later, there's a chance, not a large chance, but there's a chance they may not be available. And you've already went to their house, and now there's that wasted time and effort and gas and everything else that's done with traveling to people's houses and not being able to see them. And so, by giving them a call 1 hour in advance, what we're accomplishing is real time, within an hour of going to see them that they're available to be seen. So you call a patient the night before and they say, hey, come on out. You can come out between 1 and 3. And then you call them at, say, 12:30 and say, I'm on my way. I'll be there in about an hour. That's their last opportunity to really tell you, hey, I don't feel well, or, something come up. If they're available to be seen at that point, then by going, you should really expect that they're going to be, able to be seen. And so by doing that 2-step process of calling the night before and then calling the day of, about an hour before you get there, it's going to help patients who need to take pain meds, or who need to eat right before you get there, or haven't showered yet but want to shower before you get there. We've just seen that this is the most effective way, and we've also had this approved by the vast majority of our home health agencies. They like the way that this schedule works itself out, it really gives patients really no excuse not to be ready and ready to participate. If you look at the cons to not doing this, if you just go up the next day and start seeing patients, or if you only call them the night before, you're going to find yourself going to a lot of patients' houses where they say, I'm about to eat lunch, or I'm taking a nap, or I haven't had my meds yet, or let me get dressed. And you're going to find yourself just finding yourself with poor job satisfaction and not moving as efficiently as you probably would want to or think you should be. And it's not really on you, it's on the patients. And if you ask the patients, how could we alleviate this? They'd say, well, if I had a call an hour ahead of time, you would cut a lot of that out. And so this is kind of scheduling 101. There's probably more that could be said, but this is the most efficient way to route. If you've got any questions, you can reach out to me. My name is Dexter Simmons. I'm one that moderated this video. Call me, text me, Voxer me. You can find my information in Kinzer, or you can also reach out to the administrator who walked you through all your training. All right, guys, y'all have a good one.